a bizarro world thing for us at first because we're thinking, how did we not see these things? How did we not notice these, these 100-foot trees that had been broken off, carried over to another tree, and 5 of them were propped up like a teepee up against the other tree. 100-foot trees
Wow.
in the middle of the forest.
Now let me ask you this. I've had some people in the chat right now actually asking this question. In what area of Indiana are you doing your research? And is this in like, I'm not very familiar with Indiana. I'm from Georgia. So is this in an area where it's a massive forest that, I mean, there's really no reason that you should ever hear screams and things like that in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah, this is a state forest. I see here in the chat, somebody said you said Martinsville area and then Morgan Monroe, I guess, and you're correct.
There you go,
Um,
Jerry. Good job.
it's Morgan Monroe State Forest. They also move between Hoosier National via Yellowwood State Forest, and there is also a forest connecting that is between 2 pieces of Yellowwood, which is actually a nature preserve. And there have been sightings from Morgan Monroe all the way down south. So they're easily able to maneuver between the areas because it's so thickly and densely wooded. But this is it's a state forest, so a good majority of the front of the forest is there are picnic shelters here and there, and there's a couple lakes, and there are 2 camping, well, actually 3 camping areas. And then past the camping areas is more or less completely kind of untouched.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of the hunters like to go and everything. And I believe that is the area. There are 2 different areas that we suspect where the Bigfoots are, or should I say, where they live in that area. We do believe that Morgan Monroe has 2 different clans because of the 2 different ways that they show basically who the clan leader is, because the things that we find in one end of the forest look different than the things we find in the other end of the forest. So
Now, when you mention these 2 clans, that brings up an interesting point to me. Do you believe that these are 2 different types of species of Bigfoots? I'm assuming is the plural sound.
yeah,
right?
Bigfoots.
Bigfoots. Or do you believe that there's these different species of it, or are they all the same and just kind of act different, and they're part of their own particular clan, like you said?
Um, I think they're the same.
Okay.
They're just like people. It's going to compare. It's going to have a lot to do with where they live, how frequently they see people or around people. Like if you find Bigfoots in state parks where you have people hiking and camping and hunting and things like that, they're very used to seeing people. Very used to seeing people. Very used to observing people, and they will get into the trash cans. They will open people's coolers during the night. So they're a lot more accustomed to humans being around. But if you're talking about out in the vast middle of Colorado where nobody lives, now those Bigfoots would probably act differently than the ones that I work with. It really depends on, what they're exposed to.
Yeah, of course. Now, here's one of the things that I really found interesting about you and why I wanted you to have on. Now, a lot of people believe that the Bigfoot is just this big, huge, scary, dangerous, whatever you want to call it, animal that can literally rip you apart, right? And like
Yes.
snap people's necks. Now, from what I've heard from you, you don't necessarily believe that they're just this very, very dangerous animal. Is that safe to say?
That's safe to say. When we first started doing the investigations, I can honestly say we got the pee scared out of us more times than we can count. If we were in an area where they didn't want us to be, they would clearly let us know. We had a branch thrown at us once.
Oh,
A
really?
branch literally ripped off a tree and thrown at us, but it did fall, a good way short of us, but it let us know we didn't need to be there. And we have been flanked as we were coming up a trail. We've had one behind us, one in front of us, doing tree knocks back and forth. I mean, so close to us that it was completely freaky. And we knew they were close to us. And every time we would stop, they would stop. When we would start walking, one would knock behind us, the other one would knock in front of us. And we've had some pretty terrifying experiences in the beginning. So at that point in time, I didn't know. I really didn't know enough to really say if we were in danger or not. All I know is we ran a lot. We ran a lot. But there was one particular thing that happened to us. It was in February of 2014, I believe. No, 2015 could be. No, it's 2014. We were at a closed, because one of the campgrounds, they close during the winter time. They just use the main campground. They don't use this one is, gravel road, everything. It's not accessible for anybody. So that's where we usually go because we like it. It's, there's more trees. You feel like you're actually more in the forest. And so during the winter when it's closed down, we'll park up front and we'll hike back. And the DNR officers there know us well. They know we're not back there, going crazy and drinking and partying. So we usually go back there, have a fire, and a bunch of us met up there one night. And it was probably getting close to about 1:30, and everybody else left. And it was just my husband and myself and our friend Shane, who is also a kind of a part-time researcher. He's just more of like an enthusiast. He likes to come out and go on expeditions with us and such. And so we sat around, and it was probably about 2:30 in the morning. It was about maybe 12 degrees, I would say. It was really cold.
Freezing.
A really, really dark night. And we finally decided, okay, it's getting close to 2:30. We're not hearing a whole lot, so we're going to go ahead and head home. So we started packing things up, and we started hearing the howls pretty far off in the distance. And we're like, yeah, it's going to take them a while, because by then we had already figured out the hunting habits, because we would hear the Bigfoot howl, which would kick up the coyotes behind it, like they were like hunting together, or the coyotes were going behind them or something, but it would always happen in that sequence. And then we would hear them and they would move in a certain direction. So we were leaving. My husband had his headset on with what they call the bionic ear, which is a little handheld satellite dish. And he was kind of walking backwards because he was listening to them as they were moving. And Shane and I started to walk up a little further than him. We got about to the restroom, and we heard a howl that couldn't have been 20 feet away from us. It was loud. It started low, it went high, it went back down low again. We looked at each other and we started running. Well, about that time, my husband had heard it, but he could not gauge kind of where it was because he was listening to it through the headset. He turned around to point to us to tell us he had heard it, and we were running. And so he runs up and he's like, what's going on? Did you guys hear that? And we're like, it was right there. It was right behind the bathroom. I said, it is close. So we ran all the way up there, and Shane, bless his heart, he was pushing the key fob in his pocket when he still had probably a quarter of a mile to run. He was trying to get that door unlocked and get in that van before he was even close to it. I mean, that's how scary it was. So we got in the car, caught our breath. Shane left, and my husband and I sat there for a few minutes warming up the car, and he's like, oh, crap. And I'm like, what? He goes, I left the recorders down there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we had left 3 recorders down there running. Good part was we had recordings. The bad part was it was still down there. and so were they. He goes, well, we can just leave him there. We'll come back and get him in the morning. I said, honey, it's going to rain tonight. He said, well, crap. So I turned the brights on. I said, I'll turn the brights on and I'll watch you while you walk back there. If anything happens, I'll just start blowing the horn. He goes, oh, gee, thanks.
Like that's going to help, huh?
So he goes down and he gets the recorders, and we get home and we start listening. And I listened to this recording over and over and over, probably till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I could not stop listening to it because after the howl and we ran, it spoke.
No
and
way.
He spoke for a total of 29 seconds. And it was the most amazing thing I had ever heard because it did not sound human. The voice echoed. It was this booming voice, this deep booming voice. And he was speaking. You could hear language, but of course it didn't sound like, anything that I know. It sounded kind of close to maybe Native American.
Really?
And some of the ways he was pronouncing these words. And the way he was speaking, immediately I felt like this thing does not want to hurt us. We have no reason to be afraid. I just felt that from his voice. And I sent the recording off to a gentleman who does, he's been doing the cryptid language stuff for many, many years. And he works for the people on Finding Bigfoot and a lot of people. So I sent it to him, and he was completely blown away. He said, that is Bigfoot language. He said, that is an amazing catch. So it was from that moment on, it was after that I stopped being afraid of them. And this was even after because I had started my habituation with them that September before. It was in September, and then it was in February when we heard him speak. And it was from that time on that I really felt comfortable, and I never worried that they were ever going to hurt us. And trust me, since then, they've gotten so close to us that they could have easily just reached out and killed us immediately.
Which is probably what most people would think would happen if you encounter a Bigfoot, right?
Yeah. There's actually been a couple of hunters we've talked to since then who have encountered the Bigfoots out in the forest. They don't talk about it. These are men who have been hunting in that forest for 30, 40, 50 years and said that, we don't talk about them, but we know they're there. And if we go someplace where they don't want us to be, they said, we leave in a hurry. They said it's their land and we respect that. But, they do. They get the looks when they're coming into an area with a gun where the Bigfoots don't think they should be. And I really think that they know what your intentions are. I think they just have that sense about them, kind of like a dog has a sense about a person when they come in, whether it's a good person or a bad person. I think Bigfoots have that animalistic instinct to be able to tell if a person's there to kill them or if the person's just kind of there.
Now, you say they have like this animal instinct, but I hear a lot of people say that they also feel like the Bigfoot is extremely intelligent too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would assume so to be able to evade detection. Basically, as long as they obviously have to have some type of intelligence. One of the big questions that comes up is why can't we get this on footage of trail cams or whatever? There are videos out there, some of them that could potentially be legit, and a lot of them are faked, but what I believe is faked anyway. But why is it, do you think, that we aren't catching them on these trail cams and stuff as often as we should?
Because they're smart.
They know it's there?
They know it's there. They absolutely know it's there.
And how would they know it was there?
Number one, most trail cams will give off a small bit of, especially if they have the night vision, there will be a red light. They can pick up on that. They can pick up on.
So you think they can see infrared light?
Oh, absolutely, they
Maybe
can.
full spectrum.